is there truly a right place or a right time to find love? Madam Shalewa and her sister Tinuke are kneeling as a prophet and prophetess from the White Garment Church pray loudly over them. Just a few blocks of flats from Madam Shalewa's flat, a pot-bellied man has employed the services of Ene, the dancer, to dance exotically in front of him. Ene keeps warning him not to touch her, but he doesn't listen. So she pushes him away and tells him she has had enough. The pot-bellied man asks what about the half payment he has made before they started. Ene replies that the payment is for her cab and for wasting her time. She adds that he is lucky she's not charging him extra for wasting her time. The pot-bellied man gets angry and tries to force himself on her, and Ene runs out. Luckily, she sees Madam Shalewa's door and quickly rushes inside. The pot-bellied man also runs outside in search of her. He knocks on Madam Shalewa's door and asks her, Ene, to come out. Madam Shalewa replies that he leaves else she will call the police. The pot-bellied man grudgingly asks what is her own concern with what is going on, but he leaves her door. After a while, Madam Shalewa checks outside and confirms that the coast is clear so Ene can leave. She asks if Ene needs a car to drop her, but Ene insists that she's fine. Ene gets home and meets her sister, Dafe, and her father, Old Soldier. She asks what they have eaten, and Dafe replies that she prepared a concoction rice, but their father refused to eat it. Madam Shalewa and Tinuke are discussing the sudden return of one of their stepchildren, Khalid. Madam Shalewa is worried about their intentions towards her and what Khalid's coming means. She tells Tinuke she wishes she could have him followed and monitored so she will know his whereabouts. Tinuke is shocked at her sister's thinking and tells her to hire the FBI, then if she wants to know Khalid's movement. The next day, Ene meets her friend, Kiki, who introduced her to the stripping job. She tells her how she was nearly raped yesterday by the clients she sent her to. Kiki apologizes and promises that it will not happen again. However, Ene is done with the job. She says she is no longer interested. Kiki, thinking it is because of what happened, tells Ene she will call the man now to embarrass him, but Ene tells her there is no need and she doesn't want to relive the experience again. Kiki relents on calling the man and asks her what job she wants to do now that she's leaving the stripping job, and Ene tells her to just keep watching her. Ene meets Madam Shalewa formally in her house. Madam Shalewa asks Ene what is her story and how she ended up in the kind of situation she met her. Ene tells her story of how she couldn't finish school because her mother died and her father, a retired soldier, fell sick. She says she has been doing menial jobs to fend for her and her sister, Dafe, and since it wasn't paying so much, she decided to try stripping. Madam Shalewa shakes her head in pity after Ene narrates her story. She tells Ene she has been on the streets too, just like her, until she met her husband who took care of her and took her off the streets. She says it is only unfortunate that he died 2 months after their marriage and he didn't include her name in the will. Then her stepchildren left her with just this house and only gave her peanuts. Ene feels sorry for her, but Madam Shalewa tells her it is okay and that is why she is here to help her. Ene is confused by her statement and Madam Shalewa explains to her that Khalid will be coming back to Nigeria in a few days and she will help her spy on him. Ene refuses, saying that she won't be taking such a job, and Madam Shalewa promises to pay her 500,000 naira if she does it. At home, the landlady is haggling with Ene's father on the rent. She insults him that he's an alcoholic and a useless man, and it is only because of his daughters she's still allowing him to stay here. Ene watches as the woman continues to drag her father until she can no longer contain it. She calls Madam Shalewa that she will take the job and then assures the landlady she will pay her money. Khalid is back in town and his mother, Khadija, is discussing with him over the phone about how he should be careful of their stepmother and he should make sure he sees the lawyer, Barrister Ekong, as soon as possible. Khalid promises he will do all of this. Kiki is wondering where Ene could have gone without informing her. She goes to Ene's house to ask her father, but he doesn't care about Ene's whereabouts. He is happily sipping his beer as he shows Kiki a bed slip that will cash in some money. Dafe comes in and Kiki starts to harass her with loads of questions. Where is she coming from and where is Ene? Dafe replies that she's coming from her tailoring class and she doesn't know where Ene is. Before Kiki can start with another load of questions, she walks away from them. Khalid pays Madam Shalewa a visit at her house and she welcomes him warmly. He drops a gift for her, saying it is from him and Khadija, and Madam Shalewa replies that she knows it is from him alone and there's no need for him to cover for his sister. She tells him she got him a nice serviced apartment in town and she will just give him the directions. Khalid is surprised and he appreciates her kind gesture. Johnson, the gate man of the service apartment, helps Khalid move into his apartment. Khalid is grateful for him, but he insists on carrying his luggage himself. Just when Johnson has left, Ene appears from one of the rooms she has been hiding and scares Khalid. She introduces herself as his maid and Khalid says nobody mentioned there will be a maid, but he doesn't mind. Ene tries to help with his luggage, but he refuses. Khalid is back from his morning run and making a smoothie before Ene is up. Ene starts to apologize for waking up late, but he says he wakes more earlier due to his morning run. Ene asks if he wants anything for breakfast, but Khalid replies that he only takes smoothies for breakfast because he is on a diet. He offers Ene some some of his smoothie and she quickly refuses. Madam Shaliwa calls Ene to ask how she has settled in and if she has met Khalid. Ene replies she has settled in and she has met Khalid too. Madam Shaliwa then reminds her their arrangements. She needs to know everything Khalid is up to so she can move faster than them in case they are planning evil against her. Ene answers that she has heard, and just then she hears a knock on her door. It is Khalid asking if she would like to share some pizza with him. He mentions that he just found a nice place for pizza, but he can't finish it alone because of his diet. Ene readily accepts his offer and shuts her door quickly. Khalid meets with Barrister Ekong in his service apartment and they sit by the table to discuss. Ene brings in a bottle of wine and she's about to open it when they tell her not to worry. They will do the rest themselves. Ene leaves for her room but doesn't lock the door. She stands by the door and brings out her phone to record their voices. They haven't talked so much when Barrister Ekong suddenly turns towards Ene's room. Ene sharply shuts the door and ends the recording to avoid being caught. Kiki is still trying to reach out to Ene, but her calls are not going through. Her call is either busy or Ene's phone is switched off. Ene is stressed out with all of the wahala of Madam Shaliwa's situation already. She turns on her MP3 player and starts dancing. Khalid comes in from his outing and the house is quite noisy. Khalid checks on Ene's room to see where the noise is coming from. He sees Ene dancing and watches her for a while before he moves to turn off the MP3 player. This brings Ene back to the world and she apologizes to Khalid. She tells him she dances to let out her emotions. Sad, angry, happy, and stressed. Khalid says he doesn't mind and he only came to ask if she had ginger or something he could use for his cold. Ene gives him the hot steam treatment that clears his airways instantly. He's surprised and asks her how she knew this, and Ene mentions that she learnt it from her mother. They laugh, talking a little more about their childhood and parenting. Ene goes to see Madam Shaliwa to apologize for the mistake that happened the last time. She also adds that she doesn't think she can continue the job. Madam Shaliwa gets angry with the talk coming from her mouth. She asks her if she's not getting paid for what her problem is. She tells Ene to do anything she can to get Khalid, even if it means sleeping with him. She also promises her another 500,000 naira if she sees the job through. Ene invites Kiki to the service department and tells her all about her situation. Kiki is rather amazed by the house and her good living. She tells Ene it is better to see through because where else will she see the kind of quick money she's getting here? Ene agrees with her and promises she will see the job through. Kiki also promises to keep her father and sister safe while she's here. Ene starts making more efforts to bond with Khalid. She prepares him tuwon shinkafa and kunu. Khalid is pleasantly surprised and insists that they eat it together at the dining table. They discuss a lot more about themselves and swap stories. Khalid mentions Ene to Khadija on the calls that they have and she can't help getting suspicious of her. Khalid regales her with stories of what Ene is doing for him and Khadija listens, barely making comments. There was even a time when Ene hit her leg on the sitter in the parlor. Khalid helps her bandage it up and he stops to stare at her. Ene is already staring at him too and he moves to kiss her. Ene pulls away and immediately moves away. The next day, Khalid wonders how he will face Ene after what happened yesterday. He doesn't want to apologize for kissing her because he actually wanted to, but it wasn't right because he is her boss. Just as he's about to knock on her door, his phone rings. It is Barrister Ekong calling him on something important, that he has to come over. Ene is cleaning when she gets a call from Kiki telling her about her father. She quickly abandons what she's doing and runs home. When she gets there, Kiki has taken care of everything and stabilized her father. Ene starts to thank Kiki, but Kiki urges her to go back to her work. Khalid is back home when Ene comes in. Ene apologizes for leaving so suddenly, but Khalid says he understands it is a family emergency. Ene starts to cry and Khalid moves to comfort her. Soon, they are kissing and things escalate. Khalid is in the shower when Ene wakes up. She sees his laptop on and she takes pictures of his mail and sends them to Madam Shaliwa. Madam Shaliwa is panicky when she sees the pictures. Her wicked stepchildren plan to sell the house she is staying and send her away with a measly 3 million naira. She quickly calls her prophets to pray for her and suggests a solution for her immediately. Madam Shaliwa convinces Ene to use the anointing oil her prophets gave her on Khalid. Ene refuses at first and says she can't do anything to hurt him. Madam Shaliwa asks if she is already in love with Khalid and she thinks he will marry her. She disabuses her mind from such ideas and tells her to do what is best for her. Meanwhile, Johnson is eavesdropping on the conversation Madam Shaliwa and Ene are having. Ene tells Kiki about her new dilemma. Kiki also advises her to do what she thinks is best for her. Ene decides it's best she confesses to Khalid about the whole thing, but it might be too late. Khadija already found out everything from Johnson, the eavesdropper, and has told her brother about it. Khalid comes back home and confronts Ene about what Khadija told him and she kneels and starts begging him. But Khalid says he's not interested in her pleas. He visits his stepmother and gifts her back the anointing oil that is supposed to be used on him. Madam Shaliwa immediately knows she has been caught and she tries defending herself that they were wicked for trying to sell the house on her head. Khalid reminds her how she married his father only for his money and eventually killed him when she married him. Madam Shaliwa is shocked. She knows this and Khalid tells him and his sister knows this, but he has only decided to be nice, and while his sister can't stand her, he drops an envelope evacuating her from the house and leaves. Kiki comes to confront Khalid in his house to defend Ene. She tells him how much Ene suffered before she fell into the hands of his wicked stepmother who wanted to use her suffering to her advantage. She also informs him that Ene's father is dead and it would be nice if at least he goes to greet her. Khalid couldn't board his flight without seeing Ene again, so he goes to her house and tells her he has forgiven her because someone helped him see that not everything is black and white. He gives her an envelope containing a check and tells her not to open it until he's far off. Ene disobeys and sees it is a check for a huge amount of money. She rushes to hug him immediately. Ene asks him about what is between them, and Khalid says he can't think about that now. Maybe another time. The right time and the right place. Years later, Khalid and Khadija are back and they are on their morning run when they meet Ene. Khadija announces that she's so happy to finally meet her because she's Ene, the Ene her brother can't stop talking about. She pushes Khalid to invite Ene to dinner and he does immediately. Ene asks if this is the right time and right place, and Khalid says it might just be.